Abandoned by a millionaire son, an employee receives an incredible and surprising transformation. Alice stared blankly at her computer screen, mind racing with thoughts spiraling into dread. The project she had poured her heart into now seemed assigned to her involuntarily, like a cruel joke spun by fate. Adrian, the golden boy of their firm, had vanished, and with him sat the future she never truly believed she could grasp. Her hands clenched into fists, indignation bubbling beneath her surface as doubt wrestled with determination. How could it have come to this? Just hours ago, she'd been relegated to the sidelines, a mere spectator in the game of elite architects. Everyone at the firm seemed to question her very right to take the lead. She doesn't belong here, she heard the whispers, sharp and cutting through the fog of her thoughts. Adrian was the brains, not her. Each word struck her like nails on a chalkboard, and she could feel their skepticism latching onto her like a suffocating grip. Alice often felt like a ghost haunting the hallways, a talented designer lost in the shadows of gridlocked privilege. The pressure piled high, and the weight of her family's expectations pressed against her chest. Between late nights at work and caring for her younger siblings, a well of powerlessness threatened to drown her. Each responsibility weighed her down, and her heart raced as she questioned if she had it in her to step onto that stage. Desperation propelled her to seek counsel from Mr. Thompson, a beacon of wisdom in the chaotic architecture world. In his dimly lit office, she poured out her fears while he listened quietly, his face a mixture of empathy and understanding. His stories of struggle and ascension overcame her tension momentarily, but just beneath the surface roiled a fear she couldn't shake. Was talent alone enough in a world so starkly delineated by privilege? She admired his brilliance but felt the looming shadow of Adrian's legacy, a wealth she could not hope to contend with. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as hope flickered, Adrian strolled back into the office, disheveled and worn. His impassioned plea for redemption hung in the air like a storm cloud, but instead of feeling relieved, Alice felt the ground slip beneath her. Her heart churned with betrayal and the faintest tinge of pity. Could she extend forgiveness to the very person who had learned to skate through life? As the chaos around her erupted, so did her internal battle. Alice grappled with the question of who she truly was. Would she stand back and allow this wealthy scion to reclaim his throne? Or would she, in one moment of sheer bravery, unveil the vision that could define her career? The firm's future, and her own, hung in the balance. But irrevocably so did her loyalty to those she cherished. As she prepared for the biggest presentation of her career, the tension wrapped around her like chains, tightening with each passing second. Facing her colleagues' unyielding gazes, Alice felt a shiver run down her spine. Self-doubt coiled tightly within her, a predator ready to pounce at the slightest indication of failure. As she took a deep breath, her trembling fingers gripped her presentation, but the haunting premonition of falling short loomed large. In that moment, she realized the battle wasn't just before the team in the boardroom, it was deep within herself, a clash of ambition and trepidation. Would she rise, or would she falter, leaving her dreams suspended between what could have been and what might still be? Alice stood before the conference room, her heart pounding with the chaotic rhythm of indecision. The polished table loomed like a judge, and the faces around it transformed into spectators, gauging her every move. She didn't just battle for professional survival. She fought to reclaim her own narrative amidst the echoes of Adrian's transient glory. With a shaky breath, she clicked to the first slide of her presentation. A wave of disbelief rippled through her colleagues, their expressions shifting between curiosity and skepticism. In their eyes, She saw the judgment cast from the story of Adrian, the brilliance eclipsing her efforts. But she refocused, channeling that turmoil into energy, reminding herself of the countless hours spent crafting designs, piecing together fragments of dreams that felt unattainable. The opening image illustrated her concept, a fusion of eco-sustainability and futuristic architecture. What if we could shift the narrative? Instead of merely constructing buildings, we could create living ecosystems that breathe with the community? Her voice trembled initially, but as the passion coursed through her, it steadied, emboldening her delivery. As she continued to articulate her vision, she saw heads lean in, some eyes igniting with intrigue. Each slide gestured towards innovative spaces that nurtured not only their aesthetics, but also their inhabitants. With every click, she challenged the constraints of merely meeting expectations. This was a declaration of her capability, a silent rebellion against the whispers that had once paralyzed her. Yet despite gaining momentum, Adrian's presence seared at her peripheral vision. He observed silently, arms folded, a confluence of hope and disdain etched across his features. Unfurling. She felt a pang of betrayal, the implicit question taunting her. Was he waiting for the moment to swoop in and claim what she had worked for? In a pivotal moment, Alice paused, allowing the weight of her silence to dwell in the charged atmosphere. "Innovation doesn't require privilege," she stated, sweeping her gaze across the room and landing momentarily on Adrian. "It flourishes through relentless determination and empathy towards our shared challenges." The sincerity of her words settled over her like a protective cocoon. She realized the urgency of her truth hanging palpably in the air. Our designs should reflect our values, our choices, not just an architect's ego. If we build just for aesthetics, we fall short of our responsibility. Skepticism softened among her colleagues as discussions ignited. Questions turned into debates, and what felt like a solitary struggle began to morph into a collaboration of ideas. The tension of her launch transformed. She could feel the collective shift, a synchronous breathing between herself and her audience, an exchange that redefined respect and acknowledgement. But as Alice reveled in the spark of connection, a shadow flickered across her mind. The realization that this moment, though potent, sat precariously atop the foundation of her worth. She had challenged not just the firm's expectations, but the architecture of her very identity. A chill of uncertainty pierced through her resolve. If she succeeded, would it be on her terms, or a mere footnote in Adrian's legacy? The presentation concluded, and applause scarcely masked her inner doubts. Yet, a victory stirred deep within her. As the meeting adjourned and colleagues shifted into discussions about logistics and revisions, Alice saw Adrian stepping forward, determination gleaming in his eyes. "Can we talk?" His voice barely reached above the post-meeting chatter, but the weight behind it enveloped the room in an anticipatory silence. At that moment, Alice understood she was standing at the precipice of choice. Would she engage with him, seek collaboration, or would she fortify her stance, ready to reclaim her journey? In the pivotal silence that followed, her heartbeat echoed, broadcasting the stakes of her decision. Would this be a moment of unity or challenge? The time had come to confront not just Adrian, but herself, and the future she envisioned. Alice's heart raced as Adrian stepped closer, the air thick with a tension that threatened to suffocate her newfound confidence. She noticed the traces of uncertainty etched on his face, but those fleeting moments of doubt did little to quell the storm brewing within her. The applause still reverberated in her ears, a reminder that she'd taken a significant step, yet here he was, an embodiment of her past fears. "Sure," she replied, surprising herself with her composure. The walls of the conference room felt like they were closing in, but the resolve instilled by her presentation encouraged her to take the leap into this conversation. They moved to a quieter corner of the office, surrounded by large glass windows that framed the cityscape, like a living canvas. The sunlight poured in, illuminating the dust motes suspended in the air, a stark contrast to the shadows flickering in her mind. "I was really impressed with your ideas today," Adrian began, his tone surprisingly warm, yet laden with an undercurrent she couldn't quite parse. "You've taken a much different approach than I expected." "Thank you," she said, carefully measuring her words. "It's time for new ideas. The industry needs to change." He leaned against the wall, arms crossed tight over his chest. The body language spoke volumes. "Why did you choose this moment to break away from the past? You know the others will be scrutinizing every angle." His gaze did not waver. She ventured deeper, the weight of her insecurities pushing against the walls of her resolve. "Because I didn't want to remain unseen. I had to take control of my narrative. I'm not just here to support someone else's vision. I want to create an identity that's wholly mine." Adrian's expression morphed, flickering from challenge to intrigue. There was an intensity in his eyes that made Alice question the battle within him, a struggle that mirrored her own. "I've seen tons of talented architects come and go, but something about your vision compels me," he admitted, his voice low. "Wanting to shift the paradigm. I get that. But can you navigate this world without getting lost in the politics?" The question hit her like a bolt of clarity. For the first time, it distracted her from his legacy, shifting her focus intensely to her path. The complexities of self-advocacy in the architecture industry were daunting, yet avoiding the politics meant surrendering to fear. "I've been lost before," she responded, her voice steady. "But I'm learning. Each design I create is an expression of resilience. As long as I stay true to that instinct, I can avoid being overshadowed." He nodded slowly, digesting her words. A moment of silence lingered as she saw the gradual transformation of his demeanor, from skepticism to genuine contemplative engagement. "Maybe," he said, "the two of us could work more closely together. I can help you with the approval process, the political angle, leverage my network to truly elevate your visions." Alice's heart tugged violently in multiple directions. Collaborating with Adrian could be a strategic advantage, yet it threatened to intertwine her identity with his, a new type of dependency that felt dangerously close to the familiar shadows of her past. For how long? She found herself asking, her mind racing with doubts about the implications of his offer. What would it mean for her autonomy? Would she step into his world, or risk losing herself in it? "What about reclaiming our narratives together? Your brilliance and my resources could actually change the game," Adrian countered, an edge of eagerness edging into his tone. The prospect was enticing, yet wrapped in uncertainty. With each word exchanged, Alice sensed the weight of the decision looming ahead, interspersed with troubling echolocations of her insecurities. As they stared into each other's eyes, a wave of realization washed over Alice. In welcoming this partnership, was she sacrificing the very essence of her self-discovery? Somewhere between ambition and caution, she felt suspended in uncertainty, trapped at the nexus of opportunity and identity. Would she allow herself to trust and collaborate, or would she forge her own path, rooted firmly in her own determinations? The lingering question clung to the air between them, a precipice waiting for resolution. Alice inhaled deeply, the consequences swirling in her mind. She was on the verge of a defining moment, either choosing to dance with the possibility of collaboration or stepping away to redefine success on her own terms. The echo of change beckoned. Would she dive in or pull back? The conversation hung in the balance, propelling her toward a decision that could reshape her identity forever. Would she risk everything for a new alliance, or would she stand alone in the face of fear? Alice's thoughts swirled like leaves caught in a brisk autumn wind, each one revealing a different aspect of her uncertainty. Could she truly harness this opportunity without losing herself in the process? Adrian's offer tugged at her ambitions. It promised a way into the circles she had longed to influence. Yet there was something unsettling in the way it intertwined her fate with his, a potential entrapment that echoed the past she was desperate to escape. "Let's think this through," she said, cautious to keep the conversation grounded. "What would this partnership look like? What roles would we play?" Her voice, though measured, betrayed the tremors of anticipation and trepidation within. Adrian appreciated her probing. The shadows of hesitation in the air danced between them with newfound vitality. "I could guide you through the labyrinth of regulations and alliances while you forge ahead with your designs. We could showcase innovative projects that lean towards sustainability. Your signature approach, my connections. Think of the possibilities." Alice considered his words carefully. A partnership could amplify her voice within the industry, but a deeper inspection revealed potential hazards. And if we disagree? What if we find ourselves at odds over design choices or values? The implications of a possible clash loomed large. What would winning this external battle mean for her internal conflict? He hesitated, the confidence in his demeanor flickering momentarily. Collaboration means compromise, yes, but it also means leveraging different strengths to spark something extraordinary. Her instincts, honed through previous experiences, kicked in. It was difficult to forget how easily alliances could pivot into demands, manipulation, and loss of control. Yet this was her moment, the chance to claim her narrative, to step beyond the shadows. Would backing down mean returning to the role she had fought so hard to escape? "What about my ability to stay true to my vision?" Alice asked, her voice lowering. "Will you support my ideas, even when they diverge from the norm? Or will I become another reflection of your ambitions?" Adrian studied her thoughtfully, the space around them filled with tension as the sun painted long shadows across the floor. "That's something we'll have to navigate. If we're to work together, it's essential that your vision remains intact, that you evolve rather than conform." There was a genuine tenderness in his tone, a softness that touched the very core of her hesitation. "And what do you stand to gain?" Alice pressed, foreseeing the need for mutual accountability. He exceeded her expectations with his candor. "Honestly, I see potential in your ideas, but I also see a chance to reinvent my own approach by aligning with someone who's willing to embrace change. A refreshing perspective amid traditional methodologies." She nodded slowly, feeling the weight of partnership taking its first tangible form. Yet doubt continued to nag at the edges of her resolve. The last time she sought validation through alliances, it had cost her dearly. "I need time to reflect on this," Alice stated firmly. "This isn't a decision to take lightly. My autonomy means everything to me." "Of course," Adrian replied, his tone earnest. "Take the time you need. But just know, on some level, collaboration could propel you further than you imagined." As they parted ways, Alice felt the lingering echoes of their conversation shuffling around in her mind, the precarious balance of opportunity and influence challenging her to reconsider her constraints. Did she have the courage to take the leap with Adrian, or would she retreat into the safety of solitary efforts, stifling her ambitions for fear of re-engaging with political currents? After an afternoon filled with tight-lipped contemplation, Alice found herself standing before the skyline that had once felt representative of her aspirations, now shifting with uncertainty. She longed to sketch new ideas against the horizon, yet the decision before her felt like a stone weighed down with layers of doubt. Was this a chance at a partnership, or a chain disguised as an ally? The question loomed. In pursuing her freedom, would she bind herself again? Fueled by the urgency of reflection, she turned back to the office, determined to forge her own direction, not just within the confines of her designs, but within the very essence of her professional identity. As the door clicked shut behind her, Alice's resolve crystallized. Whichever choice she made would steer the course of her future. But the question remained. What path would she ultimately choose, and at what cost to her newfound identity? The answer was just over the horizon, waiting to be unraveled. Alice entered her office with a reinvigorated sense of purpose, the weight of her thoughts still heavy, but now tinged with the possibility of change. Her desk, cluttered with sketches, project proposals, and notes, stood as a silent witness to her resolve for independence. She gazed at the designs she had poured her heart into, each line a testament to her vision and dedication. But the specter of Adrian's offer loomed large, challenging her to reconsider her trajectory. She took a deep breath, deciding to harness the momentum of her turmoil. Writing down pros and cons, she aimed to create clarity out of the chaos in her mind. On the pro side, working with Adrian could elevate her profile, bringing her designs to a broader audience. The con list grew as she penned her reservations, potential compromises, the risk of surrendering her vision, the fear of losing herself in someone else's ambitions. With each list item, Alice's insecurities bubbled to the surface. Had she poured so much of herself into creating what others wanted that she'd forgotten what she truly desired? The thought unsettled her. These reflections on past failures had rooted deep within, and now served as both a reminder and a catalyst for growth. The late afternoon light filtered through the office window, drawing her back to the drawing board. She grabbed her favorite pencil, a small gesture of reclaiming her artistry, and began sketching ideas that had emerged during her deliberations. This was not merely work, it was self-exploration. A fusion of elegance and innovation spilled onto the page as she allowed herself unrestrained creativity, a stark contrast to the rigidity she felt partnering with Adrian might incite. Hours passed, and Alice lost herself in the process. Her sketches took on life, suggesting concepts that intertwined functionality with sustainability, whispers of her true vision shining through the nuances of her artistry. As the completed designs began to form a cohesive body, she encountered a moment of clarity, a revelation that resonated deep within her. She could redefine her path without fully relying on an alliance. The partnership, instead of binding her, could be coalesced with her identity drifting around these sketches, propelling her toward a more profound impact in the industry. This realization rooted her ambition deeper than ever. She could be a driving force of change, perhaps not only in architecture and design, but in herself. The next step became evident: an exhibition of her own. A showcase to communicate her vision while establishing her independence. A statement that she could soar above the fear and doubts that had once constrained her. Simultaneously, emotions clashed within her. Excitement danced with anxiety. As she envisioned her potential exhibition, self-doubt crept in, whispering questions. Would her work stand against established norms? Would her audience appreciate its depth? These thoughts tugged painfully at her resolve, but every thought of backing down clashed with her burgeoning confidence. In pursuit of her exhibition, Alice committed to fleshing out the logistics. The balance of showcasing her independence while navigating the intricate network Adrian offered gnawed at her. She needed to swiftly decide how to approach him without compromising the energy that now invigorated her. In that moment, she resolved to meet with Adrian for one purpose: clarity. The partnership was alluring, but she needed to redefine the boundaries of her autonomy. She would confront him with a clear vision, empowered by her discoveries of the day. But as she planned her presentation, another question emerged, pure and unfiltered. Could Robert, the old colleague who once abandoned her, reappear in this new chapter and disrupt everything she had just rebuilt? With a chill tracing her spine, Alice's heart began to race. A storm of uncertainty hung over her, facing Adrian, confronting her insecurities, and potentially unveiling the past. The moment to stand for herself had arrived, but the layers of challenge ahead could darken her newfound light. What would she uncover about herself when she finally confronted Adrian with her vision? And what awaited her on the path back to Robert? Alice spent the night jotting down notes, the pages filled with ideas that flickered like fireflies in a summer's dusk. Each scribble burned with an urgency, an intrinsic reflection of her struggle for authenticity amid external pressures. The prospect of confronting Adrian loomed, the weight of it suffocating yet exhilarating. At the same time, lurking within was the shadow of Robert, his uncertainty mingling with her burgeoning self-awareness. As morning sunlight spilled into her office, pumping life into the stale air, Alice put on a brave face. A crucial meeting awaited her, and today would shape not just her career, but her identity. She organized her sketches into a coherent narrative, strategizing emotionally as much as logistically. The studio that once felt like a confinement gradually transformed into a sanctuary, a reflection of her resilience and newfound purpose. An hour later, she stood before the tall glass doors of Adrian's firm, her pulse an erratic symphony of excitement mixed with trepidation. This was the moment when intent met action, where all her internal confrontations would culminate into a single point of expression. Would he perceive her desire for autonomy as strength, or would he dismiss it as stubbornness? As she entered, the polished marble floors and sleek decor served as a constant reminder of the world she longed to penetrate, yet feared to taint. She could sense the stylized chaos behind the surface glamour, the struggles enveloped in placid smiles, ambition masked with cordiality. "Dressed for battle, I see," Adrian remarked as he gestured her to sit. His casual tone belied the tension that crackled between them, the air thick with unspoken expectations. "I've been working on something," Alice began, her voice steadier than her racing heart. She presented her sketches, a kaleidoscope of colors and designs that danced with energy. Each piece harmonized functionality with an eco-conscious framework, a collage of her passion and extensive thought. Adrian leaned back, his demeanor shifting. His gaze sharpened as he studied her designs, but Alice couldn't decipher the thoughts racing through his mind. Did he see the authenticity that she poured into every line? Or was he simply viewing a marketable commodity? As she detailed her vision, a spark ignited within her, infusing her voice with newfound conviction. "This isn't merely architecture. It's a call to redefine our relationship with our surroundings. I want to curate an experience that invites dialogue, one that respects the environment rather than exploits it." Silence ensued, stretching into an echoing void where hopes and apprehensions collided. Would this assertive declaration resonate with him? When Adrian finally spoke, his tone bore an edge of skepticism layered with intrigue. "Alice, you're ambitious, and I admire that. But you have to consider the risks. Going solo isn't the safest path, especially in an industry that thrives on partnerships." With every warning he voiced, Alice's resolve grew firmer. "I understand the risks, but I'm not seeking safety. I'm seeking authenticity. I want to create under my vision, learn by my mistakes. Is that not worth the risk?" Adrian's brow furrowed, treading the fine line of challenge and admiration. Their conversation meandered, shifting toward the possibility of collaboration, while she fought to negotiate her autonomy amid his influential world. As they conversed, Alice felt a bubbling momentum. A realization dawned. In defending her vision, she hadn't just advocated for her work. She had advocated for her very self. She could harmonize her independence with a potential partnership, drawing strength from both avenues. Yet amid this assertion, Alice couldn't shake the instinctive worry that gnawed at her. Robert's specter lingered not just as a past wound, but an imminent disruption. The clarity she had forged today might fracture with his return, unraveling her newfound resolve. After a long discussion, they wrapped up, an agreement tentatively forming, a path towards collaboration with boundaries respecting her independence. Alice left. A blend of triumph and trepidation swirled within her. Outside, the air felt electric, charged with possibilities, yet haunted by uncertainties. She had planted the seeds of her ambitions, but, in the back of her mind, Robert's face loomed like a distant storm. What would happen when she once again confronted that tidal wave of the past? Would it sweep away every firm vow she'd just crafted? Or could she balance the emerging kaleidoscope of her future against the weight of her memories? Alice stepped onto the bustling street, the city alive with energy that mirrored her own internal whirlwind. The air was laced with the scent of fresh coffee and a hint of rain, as if the universe was reflecting her complex emotions. Triumph had surged through her during the meeting, illuminating her path. Yet Robert's impending presence cast long shadows over her excitement. She took a deep breath, trying to anchor herself. This was the moment to take control. Her career was on the precipice of transformation. Collaborating with Adrian created opportunities, but at what cost? Independence had been her battle cry, and now she stood to question the very foundation her new ambition was built upon. Her footsteps led her to her favorite cafe, a corner sanctuary where she often found clarity amidst the noise. As she settled into her usual table, a flood of thoughts consumed her. How far was she willing to push her narrative? The designs in her bag became symbols of potential, tools for empowerment, but also mirrors reflecting her insecurities. While she sipped her coffee, Alice's mind drifted to Robert. Memories of shared laughter and whispered dreams intertwined with darker recollections of manipulation and hurt. There was a time when his ambitions felt aligned with hers, yet in their wake, he had left a chasm of disappointment. Would seeing him again mean opening old wounds, or could it transform into a catalyst for closure? The bell at the cafe door chimed, jolting her from her reverie. Her heart sank as she caught sight of Robert striding in, the very embodiment of her past. Tall and confident, he moved as if he belonged to the world Alice yearned to engage with. Yet his aura felt like a barrier she had fought hard to dismantle. Alice. His familiar voice reached her, smooth yet charged with an unintended dissonance. It's been a while. As their eyes locked, she confronted a wave of mixed emotions. The warm familiarity surged alongside a tightening in her chest. Yes, it has, she replied, carefully neutral, unwilling to reveal the turbulence beneath the surface. I heard about the meeting with Adrian, he continued, leaning casually against her table. I must say I'm not surprised you're making waves. His praise, though lingeringly sweet, tasted bitter. And yet those waves didn't save you from leaving, did they? She thought, but did not voice. Instead, she fought to ground herself in the present, focusing on who she was becoming rather than who she was meant to be in his eyes. Change is a catalyst for growth, she asserted, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. I've embraced it, Robert. The tension thickened as he shifted, uncertainty flashing across his face, a nuance she hadn't expected to see. I never meant to hold you back, he murmured, his voice softer now, almost pleading. Then perhaps you can learn to let go. The words slipped from her lips, firm yet contemplative. She realized she was no longer just examining her past. She was crafting her own narrative. Yet the vulnerability of this confrontation stirred something deeper within her. Alice felt as if a pivotal piece had shifted in her psyche, igniting the inner flame of her autonomy. Would she be able to forge past the remnants of their relationship into the future she envisioned? Every word exchanged teetered on the edge of revelation. While she stood firmly entrenched in her resolve, uncertainty dripped from her thoughts, a lingering question echoing in her mind about the authenticity of her newfound confidence. Let the past go. It does not define who you are, she reminded herself silently. But deep within was a lingering curiosity about the man Robert had become in the time they had been apart. As her heart raced, she realized this moment was pivotal, not just for her relationship with Robert, but for her own path forward in the architecture of her life. But could she remain steadfast in her vision while confronting old ghosts? The bell chimed once more, the cafe door swinging open again. Alice turned instinctively, curious about what or who might enter next, unaware that outside forces were aligning in ways she couldn't yet perceive. Just as she did, the very antithesis of her struggle walked through the door, bringing with him not just new challenges but also an unexpected convergence of past and future. And as Alice prepared to navigate this sudden change, uncertainty and possibility danced dangerously close, revealing that the transformation she sought might come with consequences she hadn't foreseen. Would she stand firm in her autonomy, or would her journey dip into uncharted waters once more? As the door swung open, Alice's gaze fell upon the newcomer, a striking figure whose presence radiated an air of authority. It was Adrian, the very man whose ambitious vision had sparked the shift in Alice's career trajectory. The air thickened with the weight of expectation, and Alice felt an immediate pull, a magnetic urgency to engage with the possibilities he represented. "Good to see you, Alice," Adrian said, his voice warm yet commanding as he approached her with an easy confidence that contrasted sharply with her turbulent emotions. "Mind if I join you?" "Of course," she replied, her heart thudding in her chest. The sight of Robert still lingered, a ghost in her peripheral view, but Adrian's arrival ignited a flicker of motivation within her. This was her moment to not only reclaim her narrative, but to reshape it, to articulate her aspirations unencumbered by her past. As Adrian settled in, she noticed the subtle nuances of his demeanor, how he effortlessly commanded attention without demanding it. He had a reputation, and just as she had once feared Robert's influence, she sensed that Adrian's presence signified a different kind of power, one that could uplift rather than constrain. "You're making quite the impression in the industry," he remarked, with genuine interest that felt refreshing. "I've been following your progress. You have a unique perspective, and I believe your designs can change the conversation." His acknowledgement felt like a balm, soothing the lingering doubts that had plagued Alice since her confrontation with Robert. This was what she had craved, a validation rooted in her own efforts and ideas, rather than a validation tied to someone else's expectations or successes. "Thank you," she managed, her voice steadier now. "I've been working hard to carve out my space. It feels empowering." "Empowerment is essential," Adrian replied, with an earnestness that resonated deeply with her. "But tell me, what's next for you? Your designs have potential beyond the confines of our current projects." The question hung in the air, forcing Alice to confront a reality she had skirted around. She had been so consumed by the past, by the wounds her relationship with Robert had inflicted, that she hadn't fully embraced the direction her passions could take her. What did she truly want? "I'm ready to push boundaries," she stated, her voice gaining strength. "To explore ideas that challenge the status quo, not just within the scope of our projects, but on a larger scale." "Then let's talk about how we can leverage that," Adrian urged, leaning forward, eyes bright with possibilities. "I want to partner with you, not just as colleagues, but as co-architects of innovation." The notion ignited a spark in Alice, a burgeoning excitement that filled the space between them. It was a chance to not just reclaim her autonomy, but to amplify it, daring enough to step into the limelight she had so often shied away from. The allure of being a co-creator in projects that resonated with her values and aspirations was intoxicating. But as they began to brainstorm, the shadow of Robert remained. She felt the tension between her past and the present she sought, the terror of risking comfort for the profound unknown. Could she fully embrace Adrian's vision while still untangling the emotional threads from her previous life? The conversation flowed as possibilities crystallized, yet uncertainty flared within her. Would she be able to forge a new path without the weight of insecurity pulling her back? Or would she find herself grappling with the remnants of betrayal that had once defined her identity? Just then, the bell chimed again, and Alice turned slightly in anticipation, nerves tightening as if the door held not just another arrival, but the potential for another upheaval. Could this new alliance with Adrian be the key to unlocking her true self? Or was it a prelude to another test of her resilience? As she glanced back at Adrian, his enthusiasm pulling her toward uncharted territories, the pulse of possibility surged within her, luring her to dream bigger, but reminding her that her journey was still riddled with perilous questions. Faced with the choice ahead, a cocktail of fear and excitement roiled in her stomach. The moment felt pivotal, the echoes of her decisions racing through the space, urging her to seize this opportunity before anyone, especially herself, could think twice. How could she harness her newfound courage to navigate the unpredictable waters that lay ahead? As the atmosphere turned electric, one truth resonated clearer than ever. Transformation demanded not only resilience, but an unyielding commitment to redefine her destiny. Alice's mind fluttered, caught between the exhilarating possibilities Adrian laid out and the haunting echoes of her earlier life. She studied his expression, intrigued by his unwavering confidence in her abilities, yet a storm of self-doubt churned within. Would she stand strong enough to meet his expectations? "Let's envision where you want to be," Adrian prompted, breaking her reverie with an intensity that sharpened her focus. "What would it look like for you to craft a collection that reflects your true vision?" The idea of creating an entire collection imbued with her identity sent a thrill through her, but lingering fear whispered questions. What if it failed? What if her past, her failures, clouded her creativity? She wrestled with those thoughts, breathing deeply to steady herself before responding. "I've always been drawn to designs that fuse innovation with sustainability. I want to show that fashion doesn't have to compromise our values," she declared, her passion eclipsing her insecurities momentarily. "Now we're talking," Adrian said, a wide smile breaking across his face. "Let's take that powerful viewpoint and transform it into something that turns heads." His enthusiasm was contagious, but the familiar weight of uncertainty settled back upon Alice. Could she trust herself to deliver in such an ambitious arena? Turning to focus on the window behind her, the city seemed to pulse with life, a parallel to the urgency crystallizing in her heart. She wished to be part of that rhythm, to contribute her voice to the cacophony. Yet Robert's admonitions echoed in her mind. She had been taught to swallow her doubts, to silence her voice under the guise of professionalism. Could she risk rejection again? "Adrian, what if people don't get it? What if it's not enough?" she whispered, barely daring to voice those fears. "They will get it because it will come from you," Adrian replied, a resolute conviction deepening his tone. "You are more than capable of captivating an audience. Just look at the work you've done already. Now imagine infusing that passion into something entirely original." His gaze pierced through her uncertainty, igniting an ember of resolve. She inhaled slowly, testing the strength of her newfound determination. If she could step into this vision, if she could stand forth as the artist she yearned to be, perhaps she could rewrite her narrative entirely. As they mapped out concepts, a sliver of excitement replaced her nagging trepidation. What if this was the moment that shifted everything? The designs began to take shape in her mind, each idea a bold testament to the journey she had traversed. A blend of empowerment, loss, and resilience. But just as her thoughts began to solidify into plans, the door swung open once again, this time revealing a familiar silhouette. Robert stepped in, his eyes locking onto Alice with an intensity that churned her stomach. "Interesting to see you here," he said, his voice smooth as silk, but carrying an edge she couldn't quite ignore. Alice's pulse quickened, caught between the energy brewing in her conversations with Adrian and the tension that radiated from Robert. Was this a deliberate interference, or merely a coincidence? The stakes felt impossibly high. She could sense the balance tipping precariously between her past and the future she dared to dream of. Adrian's awareness shifted, gauging the situation as Robert took a few steps closer. The air thickened with unspoken tension, challenging Alice to confront her fears head-on. Would she allow Robert's presence to undermine the burgeoning confidence she was building, or was this an opportunity to stand firm? As she steadied her breath, a question pierced through the din of her worries. Could she navigate these two worlds without losing herself again? With that thought echoing in her mind, Alice resolved that she was no longer the woman who would flinch or hide. The moment had arrived for her to redefine her boundaries and assert her path. Yet, with her past unfolding at her doorstep, she realized this confrontation would be pivotal. Would she reclaim her narrative even in the presence of her former ally turned adversary? The night felt charged with volatility, and as the three of them stood at a threshold of confrontation, Alice's next steps loomed, both exhilarating and terrifying. How would she wield her newfound strength in response to Robert's looming presence? The implications swung wide open as the air danced with tension. Alice stood at the crossroads of her past and future, not willing to let fear dictate her narrative any longer. The energy in the cafe felt electric, and she channeled that power, ready to redefine her destiny. As Adrian leaned back and crossed his arms, Robert approached with a nonchalant confidence that masked his intensity. The tension among them became palpable. Care to explain why we're suddenly in deep conversation about creative efforts? Robert gestured vaguely, his casual demeanor betraying the underlying challenge. I didn't realize you'd rekindled your partnership with Adrian. Alice leaned into the moment, utilizing his condescension as fuel for her assertion. Adrian and I are discussing innovative approaches rooted in sustainability. It's the kind of work this industry desperately needs. Right, Robert replied, his tone dripping with subtle sarcasm. Sustainability, what a lofty goal. There was an edge to his voice that struck Alice like an arrow, and yet she stood her ground, fortified by the strides she had made in claiming her voice. I could have stayed in the shadows, allowing others to dictate my path, she shot back, conviction surging through her. But I choose to fight for my vision. The words hung in the air, resonating with her evolution. In this moment, she felt not just empowered, but emboldened to confront the very roots of her insecurities. Looking into Adrian's eyes, she sensed his silent support, a lifeline that urged her forward. Good to see you embracing that change, Alice. Adrian joined in, his tone unyielding, a direct counterbalance to Robert's doubts. It takes courage to break free from the confines of expectation, especially in this industry. Alice held steady against Robert's almost predatory gaze, the two of them locking eyes. What do you really want, Robert? She asked, cutting through the air with intensity. Are you here to undermine my progress, or do you truly want to understand the direction I'm headed? For the first time, Robert faltered, momentarily caught off guard by her courage. His bravado slipped, and for the briefest moment, the facade of indifference faded, revealing a glimpse of uncertainty. It was a moment of vulnerability that Alice had never seen. The silence between them grew thick, charged with the weight of stark honesty. In that moment, Alice realized that his apprehension mirrored her own, both of them battling against preconceived notions. I want the best for you, Alice, he said finally, though the sincerity felt layered. I just don't want to see you end up regretting choices made in haste. The tone, though gentler, sparked defiance within her. I won't regret choosing a path that aligns with my vision, Robert. I refuse to allow your opinions to chain me. Adrian observed silently. Pride etched across his features as Alice ardently challenged the ghosts of her past. With each word exchanged, she disentangled the hold Robert had over her. After moments of tension, she turned to Adrian. Together, we're setting a new standard, one that doesn't rely on anyone else's approval but our own. Exactly, Adrian said, smiling at Alice's strength. Let's craft a legacy that reflects authenticity, a legacy rooted in resilience and innovation. With Robert standing on the sidelines, Alice felt the emotional weight lift. His presence no longer defined her limits. Instead, it became a catalyst for her transformation. In that cafe, Alice embraced the realities unfolding before her, like blueprints strewn across a canvas. The pieces fell into place, and she unlocked the loyalty of her tenacity, the essence of what she had fought for. Let's make it happen, Adrian, she urged, clarity now flowing through her as she turned to him. I want to showcase a project that encompasses all I've learned, the beauty of our environment intertwined with function. Then let's do it, Adrian replied with a confidence that solidified their partnership. You've got the talent. That deserves to be recognized. Alice turned back to Robert, feeling the fire within her pulse. I appreciate your concern, but I must allow my work to speak for itself. This is my journey, and I'll navigate it on my terms. As Robert nodded, perhaps begrudgingly, Alice recognized the distance forming between them, each step forward propelled by her willingness to embrace her autonomy. The ghosts that once haunted her were now receding into the background, shadows fading to the light of her newfound ambition. Emerging from the cafe, determination coursed through her veins. With Adrian at her side, the landscape before her looked different, shaped not by fear, but by vision and innovation. Alice was no longer in the shadows. She was poised to take control of her narrative. And as they walked together, a sense of fulfillment surged within her, marking a decisive moment of triumph. The paths she envisioned now danced vividly before her, each design carrying the promise of possibility, echoing with the sounds of empowerment and clarity. Alice had conquered not only external conflicts, but had transformed her relationship with her own self-worth. She effortlessly walked into her future, confident in the knowledge that she would continue to build a legacy defined solely by her drive and creativity. She had achieved more than a professional goal. She had reclaimed her narrative, emerging victorious in her very own story. Alice had become the architect of her own fate, and she embraced every moment with undeniable resolve. Now, dear viewers, it's your turn to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss out on future exclusive personal triumphs. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. You know it makes a difference. And share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us your reactions and theories about Alice's transformative journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this captivating story with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of overcoming obstacles. You need to support the channel through these actions. Together, let's continue to celebrate stories of real personal transformation.